Okay, so thank you for coming to our session today. Today we are talking about creating a mobile application with Drupal as the backend. So this is about the project that we have been working on with another agency named ZipTech. So it's a collaboration between Evolving Web and ZipTech. In this session, we will be talking about the scenario, the problem that we are trying to solve, and we will talk a little bit about the technical decision that we have been making in building that. So let's get started. And Alex, you want to start with this?
Yeah. So first, a word from our sponsor. So Robert and I both work at Evolving Web. We're a web development agency that's been specializing in doing high quality, open source based and Drupal based work since 2007, and we've been very active in the Drupal community ever since. Aside from doing web development, we also have a really great training program. Our team, the coworkers that we have, both full-time and freelance, are distributed all over the world, although our headquarters are here in Montreal, Canada. And we have a lot of clients over the last decade plus, big and small. And we also, because we've been so enmeshed and embedded in the community, we feel like we've built up a really great distributed community of experts that we draw upon for every project. Here's a few obligatory client screenshots, as many Drupal shops. So we've done a lot of great work for universities. Currently, we're working with Princeton and Georgia Tech, and yeah, lots of public organizations, nonprofits, and even the occasional technology company. Our work in the Drupal community is pretty well known. Many of you have seen our presentations, especially by my partner Suzanne Dergachev. But here we'd like to highlight some of the more recent work that we're doing that we're very excited and to share with you, and that's more with mobile development and React Native. I think in part that's triggered by us working with Robert, who for the last couple of years has been gently encouraging us to move more towards using Drupal with mobile solutions. And so far we've got a couple of apps that we've built that we're excited to share with the world. We built one or two apps for Drupal events that we participated in, such as last year's Decoupled Days. We built this Children's Hospital of Philadelphia Vaccine Education Center's Vaccines on the Go app, which we'll be talking about in this presentation. And then we've also built an intranet app that allows a large Quebec-based pension fund called the Caisse de Dépôt to share news with its employees, and it's called the Scoop. So we think we've had some great experiences under our belt, and of course we're always learning more and excited to do more. Yeah, I just noticed that some people are saying that audio is a little echoey. Let me know in the chat, and I'll run out and get a microphone if that's still the case. Thanks. By the way, we don't just do Drupal and not only React Native, but our new career site is powered by Gatsby.js. So if you guys are looking for React Native, Gatsby, Drupal, or PHP or JavaScript work, as well as anything related to the agency workflow and world, please check it out. We got some postings and we're hiring. A little bit about us. So Robert will go first.
Hi. What to say? Okay. This is me introducing me. I am a full-stack developer. I'm now working at Evolving Web. So I have been working with Drupal for more than 10 years already. In the last few years, I started working with mobile development. I start with iOS, and then then I switch into building mobile app using React Native because I'm very interested in JavaScript, the modern JavaScript. So I have been playing around with Gatsby, React Native, and recently Flutter. So next is a slide of Alex, and he is here.
I'm back, almost back with this. Thanks, guys. So next, yeah, I started evolving web back in 2007. I think I was, for a couple of years, briefly a backend developer specializing in WordPress and Ruby and Rails. But in 2009, I discovered Drupal, and we've been focusing on Drupal just because we love the community and the ecosystem and the niche that it had at the time, and also the new niche that it's developing for itself as it's growing and changing ever since. In addition to that, I'm also excited about static site generations, Ruby, and making, according to this, making side projects and Chrome extensions that I like to give funny names to. So if you're curious, Google my GitHub and check out what's there. Great. So the first part of the presentation, and I'm gonna quickly. The first part of the presentation is to tell people a little bit more about what is React Native. So I guess you're here, so you must be interested in it. And maybe you've heard a lot of things. So let's see if you can summarize it simply. React Native is a mobile development framework originally created by Facebook that iterates on different approaches, of building mobile application. That's stuff for your mobile phone, without necessarily having to target each individual platform, mainly iOS or iPhones and Android, separately. Because if you do native development, you'll be writing things in either Objective-C and Swift for iOS, and Java or maybe Dart for Android. And so React Native's goal is to unify that and give you a single code base, in this case written in JavaScript, which is really great for web developers, to create your beautiful mobile app user interface and all the code, and then package it into a native app that you can deploy to the app stores. So it's used by a lot of big organizations such as Skype, Instagram, obviously Facebook for a lot of things, Uber, Airbnb used to use it. Shopify is just adopting it now, so it's pretty big. It has a few key advantages. So first, the way you should think about it, and the way the developers describe it, is that there's a JavaScript virtual machine embedded in the actual app runtime, and React Native has a bridge that communicates within this embedded JavaScript interpreter, and which is running the code that you as the web developer would write, and the actual mobile app framework, either in Java for Android or Objective-C for Swift. So you can think of React Native as a bridge between the JavaScript world and the respective platforms that speak their own language.
Can I jump in here for 1 minute? So the concept of React Native is that when you are writing your code and your business logic in JavaScript, and there is a bridge in between of JavaScript and the native code in your mobile phone, and that bridge, the function, it will translate your business logic into native code that can be executed on the mobile phone. So that means, what does it mean? That means in the past, when you build mobile app using technology like PhoneGap, for example, it relies on building the UI on the web view. But now with React Native, you are controlling the UI view, UI component, the native component. So that will give React Native application a better performance and better interaction with the user. So that is one of the huge benefits of React Native.
Thank you. When we use React Native, we actually are using it together with Drupal. In some sense, a mobile app is kind of like a front end for your website, in a metaphor. And most websites built today, it's not enough to build a static front end. You need to have a whole system for the team that puts together the content, manages it, and we, as Drupal people, but also in general, think that Drupal is a great platform to manage all the content management workflow and updating the content managing your users and giving them this database. So Drupal is still acting as the main database, and also as the development platform for all of your sort of custom server-side backend functionality. And the app is taking place of, like, a React front end that you have. Drupal is really great, especially Drupal 8, because it has really native, almost native supports for API using JSON and now GraphQL, and so it's a very mature and robust platform to be a backend. And of course, it integrates with Solr and Elasticsearch really well, and you can leverage all of that functionality. And it's also important to note that the Drupal community over the last couple of years has been moving towards this idea of decoupled Drupal, where Drupal is no longer like you just download it and it's your front end with a theme and your back end with a CMS all in one, but you actually are using the pieces of Drupal just for the best part and coupling it with other technologies, combining it with other technologies that fit your target platform. And in this case, if your target platform is the native applications, you should consider doing React Native for it. And I think we also should make you guys aware that there's Preston So is a very active member of the Drupal community that's been co-organizing a series of conferences called Decoupled Days that we've attended and presented, usually in New York City, that gathers people from the Drupal community who are interested in seeing how it's being used in these new exciting ways. To go a little bit more into the specifics, and I'm sorry if I'm scaring anybody with screenshots of code. It might get worse after this. Well, here's what a React Native component looks like. So its philosophy is that you're combining CSS with this custom HTML JavaScript combination, and so it has these embedded templates and CSS embedded right in the JavaScript files for each component. And each component you can think of as a block or a widget, and they're composable or nestable. And so the great thing about React Native, as opposed to React, which is that React Native's components actually get converted into different native components. So there's an Android equivalent and an iOS equivalent of each button and each image and any other things. And on the other hand, you can still use your React workflow that you're used to, including NPM for package management. So it kind of provides a streamlined workflow. There's some perks. The obvious one is that you get to write your native components in JavaScript and CSS. But if React Native, you ever hit the limit, you're encouraged, in fact, not just able to, but encouraged to run Xcode or Android Studio. This is the IDE that compiles Objective-C or Android, and actually write native code and extend what React Native can do and mix and match. So this makes for a really powerful combination. It also supports hard reloading, which I think the native development workflows don't quite do as well. And also, if you really like to avoid heavy IDEs and you want to use Sublime Text for Vim, you can still do that with React Native. We should mention, though, that push notifications we found generally kind of force you to jump into the native side because they're quite different for each platform. And Robert can talk about that a little bit more. And also, if you are going to be writing native code and have custom native components, you're going to be setting up Xcode or Android Studio, and you'll be figuring out how to compile and build a native app with it. So just so that you're aware, it's a blurry line, and you'll start, and you can get quite far just by touching only JavaScript, but probably you will become a mobile developer at the end of this. The other thing we wanted to cover is that React Native isn't the first framework that came along to tackle this use case of creating mobile apps in a streamlined and unified way. Before this, we've had PhoneGap, Cordova, Ionic, which kind of combine HTML5 and native in some ways, with more emphasis on HTML5. It's important to know what's a progressive web application, which is kind of like a responsive website, but with an extra manifest file that instructs Safari or Chrome on Android to package it as a mini app and make it look like an app. And that has a lot of features that might be enough for your use case. Of course, you could also go full hog, and we encourage you to learn that option and actually learn native mobile app development. And also, we are not going to cover it in this presentation, but everyone in the mobile development world is very excited today, except maybe Facebook, about the emergence of Flutter, which is a very serious competitor by Google to React Native, I think based on Dart.
Yeah,
and Robert's exploring it, and who knows, maybe this time last year he'll be presenting about how he switched from React Native to Dart because it's the new hotness. Okay. I have another slide here just to give you a little bit of context. How to consider the pros and cons of React Native compared to a responsive website or a progressive web application. Well, so obviously a progressive web application is much more minimalist, and if you already know how to make how to do web development, you can make a progressive web application. However, for perhaps strategic reasons, Apple has made it difficult to install progressive web applications on iOS. You have to click a couple of things, and it's kind of hidden, and most people don't know how to do it. So that alone makes it difficult. React Native allows better native controls, and so it looks like a real, and it is in fact a real native app. And as a native app, it also allows you to use certain APIs from the device, like Bluetooth, camera, background processes that websites are not privileged to, and therefore progressive web apps only allow a few more of those. As far as I understand today, iOS, you cannot do push notifications with progressive web apps. But on the other hand, if you're in React Native and you're building basically native apps and packaging them with the full power of that, you have to remember that you're going to be distributing it with the Apple Store and the Android Play Store, the App Store and Play Store. And there's a delay in an approval process, and obviously that slows down development a lot. And also you'll have to give away 30% of your revenue, if any, to your respective masters. But on the other hand, responsive and progressive web apps are lighter and faster, and you already know how to do it. So that's kind of the trade-off. Alan, I notice, has a question. His question is React Native interpreted or compiled? And I imagine it's a mix, but Robert can explain better.
I believe that it is interpreted. So JavaScript will be, let's say you are create a component in JavaScript in React, and then when it passes the bridge, it will be converted into building a UI button, for example, in iOS. So it's an interpreter. Yeah, it's not compiled.
I think it's a mix. I think it's both interpreted because there's that JavaScript interpreter, and also compiled because the native parts are compiled.
Yeah.
So it's actually both.
Yeah.
Great. So okay, so for the next portion of our so that was the briefing, and we actually would like to take a second to pause and ask if you guys have any other questions related to what we just discussed, and if you feel like you're wrapping your head around what we're talking about before we can go and show you more specifics.
So the question is, does it also work on browser? So if you are building a React Native application, it will not work on browser because that it's built for mobile application only. So if you create a project with React Native, you will have a shared code base where you can usually we will put it in a folder named src, and then you will have another folder which is iOS, another folder for Android. So your business logic will be in your source folder. It will be used by the native application iOS and Android. So you cannot use the React Native code directly on the browser, but because it is React, so you can reuse some of your component on your website if you want to, but that is very limited.
Yeah, and we don't have that much direct experience with the following thing, but from what I've heard at other Drupal camp and other conference presentations, people often try to reuse code between their React Native mobile application and their React web application that they have, maybe with Drupal powering the backend of both. And so that's probably what Elena was asking about. Is that commonly done? It's commonly tried to do, but the real world experience that we've heard from people who've done it is that sometimes maintaining a consistent React code base for two somewhat different target platforms is more trouble than it's worth. And several people I've spoken to said they would have kept it simpler and simply had separate sites. So that's an important consideration. And thank you, Ellen, for bringing this up. Alejandro mentions why React and not Angular. I think Facebook created React Native. Facebook was pushing a competitor to Google's Angular, and they called it React. So I think that's a historical reason why Facebook would adopt its own web development framework. In terms of technical pros and cons, why not Angular? I don't think we know enough about React to know why you couldn't. Sorry, we don't know enough about Angular to know why you couldn't build something similar with it. But for whatever reason, Google didn't decide to make Angular native. They decided to do something else entirely.
Yeah, just Flutter.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. Okay, so now we're talking about this app, Vaccines on the Go, for the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia's Vaccine Education Center. Robert's been working on this for the better part of this year. And when we started the project a year ago, we had no idea how important this subject would become. So I guess we can all say, hey, this is a very timely presentation that we're doing here. So this Vaccines on the Go app, it's a mobile application that allows the hospital's Vaccine Education Center to share with its stakeholders, which of course are all the patients and the community that it serves, as well as the media, information about vaccines, and in an easy to access form for busy families who need to understand this, maybe as they're about to wait in a doctor's office and trying to figure out what they should do for their child. So we actually did work with Ziftech, which is a great agency in Philadelphia, who have been working with the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia for several years now, and actually think they recently won a PR, I forget the word, but a prestigious award for the work with the Vaccine Education Center for not this app, but for the related website. So they're doing great work, and their responsibility was for the design, user experience, and conceptualizing how this app would be built and the content in it, and working directly with the client. And Evolving Web's responsibility in this case was actually building out the technology stack of Drupal 8 and React Native and making it all work together. And that's what we'll be talking about today. Great. So here's a few screenshots of the app. Because we're on Zoom, maybe it's a little bit difficult for us to do a demo, but as you can see, it has a lot of ways of finding out the different vaccines, when you should get them for your family, and safety considerations related to that. There's embedded PDFs, embedded videos, and you can even take notes so that you can flag it to a doctor later. So I'll let Robert take the next part.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. So in this project, I want to give a bit the context of the project. So previously, we have another version of Vaccine on the Go, which built with PhoneGap. And then when I get into this project, we decided to rebuild the whole application using React Native, because at that point, React Native is the best solution of cross-platform mobile application. So the reason that we chose it is because we want to maintain one single code base, so that it will reduce the development time, the maintenance cost, and it gives the native user experience. So we want the best for the user. And there are three things that are the key features for this application. The first one is the push notification. Second one is the analytic tracking. And the third one is the offline caching. So imagine this application is just like a book about vaccine. And whenever you open the app, you fetch all the content, and then when you go offline, you still have content of the book to read it when you want. You don't want to be connected to the internet all the time to get content. So that is the idea. The architecture of the app is fairly simple. We want to keep everything as simple as possible so that the maintenance is not too crazy. So we have the biggest part is Drupal, is where we enter content, we manage content there. We have the Firebase system, which is a platform from Google, which provide push notification and analytic tracking. So whenever we want to send a push notification from Drupal, we will create a node, and that node will be light up in cron job. Whenever it is published, it will send a request to Firebase, and that request will be the title, the body of the push notification, together with the deep link that we want to send in the notification. And Firebase will take care of the part to transfer the notification to the mobile. In this case, will be iOS and Android, which means Firebase will be talking to APNS, which is Apple's push notification service, which will take care of the part of receiving the notification, send it to each iOS device, and Firebase will send directly to Android device. Did I skip one? Okay, here. So here I want to talk about the push notification features in Firebase. So the notification is the thing that the message that pop up on your device. So I guess everybody are familiar with it already. The benefit of push notification is that it can have how to say, improving engaging user, and it can target the right user. The app publisher can send a notification whenever they want to notify something important. In our application, this will be the case where we want to send an important information about the vaccine or something about the children health announcement to the user. I think that is a very important feature in this day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So in this project, what we have done is we need to implement the Firebase SDK into our React Native application. So the implementation is fairly straightforward because Google is very good in documenting their framework. But there's one thing about the push notification, because that is a native feature. So when we use it in React Native, we run into the time where we need to, sorry, this is Apple. How can I? Sorry. Okay, thank you. So we run into the case where we need to touch the native code, for example, Swift in iOS and Java in Android, to create a custom service to handle push notification in a special case. That special case is when your application is in foreground. So according to the document of Apple and Android, when your application is in foreground and that you get a notification, it will not display anything. It will up to the developer to handle that notification. So we need to create a custom service to cache that notification, show a local notification instead, so that the user won't miss it. Because by default, if you don't do anything, you won't see the notification when you are opening that, when you are using that. So that is a tricky part of the app. And in this application, we want to have a deep link in the notifications. So it's where you send a notification together with a link. User click the notification, it will go to a specific page in the application. Here we have a question from Francois Yen, and I think that for this, yes, yes, you are right. Thank you, Francois. Firebase is free for push notification. The second big features of this application is the Firebase Analytic. So when we build this application, the client say that we want to track, we want to collect usage and behavior of the user. We want something similar to Google Analytics. And let's say you want to know how many users are installing the app, how many users are focusing on a specific piece of information on your app. So this Firebase Analytics is similar to Google Analytics for the website. Actually, when we first start the project, Google Analytics still support mobile application. But last October, Google decided to move on the mobile analytics to Firebase. So we adopt the new framework Firebase Analytics in our application. And that allows us to collect the data that we need. Firebase Analytics is also very powerful in reporting. So by default, you have a good enough report, but you can also create a custom report if you want. Let's say if you want to have a custom report to know from which location that the user used this information about that vaccine the most, you can create a custom report like that. It's very powerful. So in this application, we want to collect, okay, when do you open a screen? When do you click a link? How long do you stay on that screen, for example, like that? And there is one special demand, a special request, which is the user need to be able to opt out analytic tracking. So if you don't want your data to be collected, you are able to opt out. So we build a simple setting page where you can switch off the button and we will no longer track you down anymore. Here I have a short video about the real-time analytic tracking on the app in action. So here I'm doing I'm browsing the app, I'm going from screen to screen, and on the right-hand side, we have a debug view from Firebase. It's a bit slow right now because there is a delay to collect data from Firebase. So I think it will come now shortly. Yes. So now you can see on the right hand, it start tracking that, okay, you are clicking this link, that link, and you are viewing this one. So we are able to collect those events in Firebase. Move to the next one. Okay, am I going too fast? No. Okay. We are going to the next big features of this application, which is offline caching. So, like I said before, we want all the information of the application to be available even when you are offline. So the solution that we choose is to store data inside SQLite. So we use React Native SQLite storage. That is a library, and the good thing about this library is that it has the same JavaScript API to access data in iOS and Android, which means you only need one abstract database layer to connect to your database. So that is easy to manage. The second thing is it supports SQL transaction. So things like you can write a select star from table node so that you can query out on the content that you need. So I thought that is very interesting because we come from the Drupal world, so we are familiar with MySQL already. So this language is easy to adapt. The third one that I like from this library is that it supports promise. So promise is a features from the new JavaScript that allow you to avoid blocking multiple action at the same time. So let's say you are firing a request to query data from database, but you don't want your UI to be blocked by that. It still do all the action. So it promise make your app handle those tasks smoother and provide a better user experience to the end user. The 4 features of this library is that you can pre-populate SQLite database. So initially, when we build the app, we have the idea to ship on the database. When you download the app, you already have the content already. We already test that features and it's already worked really well. But then we think that, okay, maybe we don't want to ship the outdated content to the app. So we switch into the strategy so that when you install the app for the first time and when you open the app, we will connect to the Drupal server and fetch the latest content and insert into your local database. So that will be better because nobody wants to read the outdated information about vaccine this day. Oops, sorry. This is the diagram of the flow of the request and storing data in our application. So first, when you are using a mobile app, here you send a request, which is 0 here. The request will go to Drupal server. Drupal server will return you a JSON object with all the information that you need. And then it will send back to the mobile application, render it out, and then update the local database. So whenever you make a request, it will go to the server, go back to the mobile app, render it out, and store it in your local database. In this project, I need to create a custom database abstraction layer. So the idea I have it is come from Drupal because I know that Drupal has that abstract database layer. So I think it's very useful and very easy to use. So I try to create the similar approach to work with SQLite. So I think that is the part that I found the most interesting in this application and learn some from Drupal. In this application, there's one thing that we learn from building offline application, which is very different from website. So on website, you fetch on demand, you open the page, it will fetch data from the server. But in application, because sending requests to server is very expensive. You make a request, it might slow down your application. So we come up with the concept where we fetch as much as possible when you open the app, update data from the server, and then whenever you browse the app, your data will come from your local database, which will be faster. And you only fetch when your data is outdated. In our application, we set the cache lifetime for local data to be like 3 minutes, I think. So within 3 minutes, you don't need to send another request to the server.
So this is how we can get that native-like experience, even if the Wi-Fi connection that they're on isn't super stable.
Yeah. So this, oops. Thank you. Sorry, we hit the wrong button, I think. Where is my screen?
You have to reopen.
Sorry.
Hi, do you have a share button showing at the bottom of your screen?
Yeah, we're there.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, it's the Zoom multi-monitor challenge.
Yeah. Okay, sorry about that. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, it's fine now.
Yeah, thank you. So we are talking about the whole diagram of the fetching, caching data on this application. So if you are a bit familiar with React, you already know about the component did mount event and the hook use effect. So that is something that will be loaded when the component appear on your screen. So in this application, when you open the screen, it will decide to fetch data or not. If the fetch data or not, we'll check for we check to see if the cache already expired or not, and return a Boolean, true or false. And then the Boolean will decide to go to get data from either the database and then render it out, or we should go to the server, get the latest data from there, render it out, and then save, update, and then update the database, so that the second time that you come to the same screen, it doesn't need to go to the server to fetch data anymore, and just go directly to the database and get it out. Move to the next one. Here is the list of library and tools that we have been using in this application. So this application is built on top of React and React Native. We have Redux for state management, and then we can use it to handle the request to the server, avoiding the UI blocking issue. We have React Navigation is a framework that allows you to build the flow for your application. This means you can navigate from this screen to another screen, or you can have the bottom tab bar, like the 5 button at the bottom of the application, where you can switch from this screen to another screen. We use React Native Firebase. Like I said, it's for push notification and analytic. We use SQLite storage. And beside that, we also use React Native PDF, because in this application, it's shipped with some PDF about vaccine. So you need to use that library to view the PDF in your application. We also use a part of it, a part of the app used React Native Web View, where we load the whole web page in the screen. I also use Lodash, which is like a utility library where it helps you to work with object and array in a proper way. Prop type to make sure that your data is, to make sure that your code is good. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think based on what we see here is that if the audience of this at this webinar presentation is mostly Drupal developers, you'll see that Robert really had to know the React world pretty well in order to do this, and there's quite a bit of like many weeks or months of experimentation and learning that you should be aware of. And at the same time, we found that transitioning from React to React Native, there's similar like weeks of trying out different libraries and methods and reading tutorials and setting up an environment.
Yeah.
So I think you want to be realistic, when you're a PHP or JavaScript developer who's excited about this world and thinks they want to try it. This is a great next step for you, but you have to know that you're going to be learning React in and out, and then you'll be learning React Native in and out.
Yeah.
And Robert, could you speak to how much of your iOS development skills did you have to leverage during the course of this project, the real world project?
In this particular project, I think the hardest part about iOS is firstly you need to create a custom service to handle push notification when it is in foreground. But I come from I have some experience working with mobile before, and I found that working with React Native, you need to have some basic skill in mobile development so that you can debug it. Because sometimes you need to run your application in Xcode or in Android Studio and try to debug the problem from there. So you need to know a bit more about native development.
Yeah. So, and this echoes a lot of other people who went down that road. Is that this is a great way to learn mobile development if you're a JavaScript developer, but you can't pretend that this is only JavaScript and there isn't native mobile code running as part of what you're doing. It's not there yet in 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
So just dive in, but keep your eyes open as you do.
Yeah, because sooner or later you will need to touch the native part of the mobile application.
Yeah, and on the local storage side, it was probably good that you had that experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we come to this slide. Okay, always when I finish a project, I always think that what can I do if I redo it right now? So this is about that. This application is, we started last year, I think last March already. So at that time, React Hook is not very popular, it's not out yet. But now if I can redo the application, I will use React Hook because it's really nice way to organize your code and it's improved the performance of the app a lot. The second thing that I want to do if I can redo the app is integrate TypeScript. So TypeScript is it's have you write a better code. You need to write more, but it's have you write better code and your code will be more predictable, which is more stable and easier to manage. So, and the third one is the thing that I really want to set up, but I couldn't set up in this particular project because the client is take care of the deployment process. So if the project is on mine, I will set up Fastland for the deployment. So Fastland is an open source libraries that have you do something like DevOps for mobile development. So Fastland, let's say whenever you want to publish an application to App Store, you need to go to Xcode, create an archive, push that one to test flight, and get Apple to approve it, and then you can publish your application. So that process is painfully long. And the action to archive everything and push it to test flight, recheck the status of your app on test flight, it takes a lot of time. And Fastland automate everything for you. Whenever you want to publish the app, you just need to hit one button, let's say Fastland beta, and then it will compress everything, build an iOS application, push it to test flight, create an APK file for Android, push it to Google Play Store. So the funny thing when I use Fastland is that it always say, okay, you save 90 minutes on doing this job. That is nothing for one go, but if you are continuously building and shipping features on your application, that take a lot of time. So I think in another application, I save quite a lot of time by using Fastland to deliver the application and features. So that is definitely the thing that I will integrate in each and every application that I will build from now on. And Fastland support not only React Native, but it also support native development like Swift, Android, Flutter, and React Native.
For the record, Fastlane did not sponsor this presentation.
Yeah, it's just purely my left tip Fastlane. Yeah. Okay, so our application is now available on App Store and Play Store. If you go there and look for vaccines on the go, you will be able to find it there. And lastly,
yeah, and just to come back to Evolving Web's activities, like I mentioned earlier, we do a lot of training, a lot of in-person training in different cities, which for obvious reasons has been all rescheduled online, which we hope works just as well for most people. So we have a five-day Drupal training going on at the end of March, and also another one at the end of April, and then a 2-day accessibility training, web accessibility training in the middle. And yeah, reach out to us for any information you'd be interested in, whether it's the Drupal training that we offer, or if you'd like just some consulting time related to native development or combining Drupal and native or React Native apps. And so that sums up our presentation. So we'd like to thank you guys. I think we have 10 minutes left for questions, or 7 minutes. So shoot them in the channel, or Catherine will moderate for that part. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Oh, and finally, I have the slides link I'm throwing in the Zoom chat right now.
Thank you. So the slides will be on the MidCamp site. On the session page, you'll also find the session evaluation form. So please head over there and fill out your evaluation. And actually, if anybody has any questions, if you'd like to unmute yourselves now, you can do so and talk to Alex and Robert directly.
I think we need to wake everybody up.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I have, if there's no question or somebody's still thinking what they want to ask, I have a question for you folks. Has anyone here used Flutter to do something similar, and do they have any experience they want to share related to that? It's written in Dart, so that's quite different for Drupal devs.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll take that as no. But Robert, did you ever play with it?
Yeah, actually, I've been playing with Flutter and I really like it. First, I come to React Native. I love it because it's JavaScript. It's familiar with what I've been doing with Drupal. But then I discovered Flutter, and the more I learn about it, the more I like it. It provides better performance, like really better performance, because the Flutter application will be compiled into native code, and then when you ship it to the user, it will start the startup time is really quicker than React Native in that term. And the second thing is that the way that we code in Dart, I think is more familiar when you have programming background, like backend programming background. So if you are familiar with like some design pattern and you want to, if you come from mobile development world, I think you will prefer Flutter. But if you come from the web development world, you will prefer React Native. I think that is what I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds fun. We're looking forward to learning more.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's. It doesn't look like we have any more questions. So thanks very much for joining us, guys, and look forward to